Welcome to Home, Space and Reason, a podcast about creating a home that thrives.
Hi there, I'm Christina Browning, your host. If you know your home could be so much more than it is, I discuss home functionality, aesthetics, and automation. I'm a realtor in Portland, Oregon, and a home functionality coach. I geek out on every subject imaginable regarding your home and yard, challenging you to think of your space differently to get the most out of every square foot. I pose questions for you to think through about your space and your reason. This podcast is all positive, offering you virtual fist bumps and celebrating every win. Remember, there's no such thing as perfect, but you can still aim for your best every day. Join me on social media by searching for the handle Space and Reason. Welcome to the 100th episode. I can't believe I've done this thing 100 times. Written this, recorded and produced this 100 times. Do you know someone who struggles with overwhelm? Share this podcast with them. Part of it addresses ways to think about our spaces differently, not just to get the most out of every square inch, but also to think about ways to reduce overwhelm, to ask ourselves questions about what triggers the emotion we feel when we walk into a space or a room, whether it's good or bad. Why do I feel the way I feel in this room? If I feel uplifted and happiest, more so in this room than any other room in my house, why? If I never go into a room and find myself actively avoiding it, also, why? This podcast poses questions to think through about your space and your reason. Sometimes the questions get you to answers that might not even be a part of that episode, but the internal pondering and deeper thinking can be helpful for a variety of reasons. I want to share a wonderfully powerful quote with you by Scott Domes. Quote, "Notice the environments where you become your favorite version of yourself." End quote. Notice the environments where you become your favorite version of yourself. Isn't that good? In celebration for episode 100, let's geek out together on the top 10 most listened to episodes in a countdown version. And I'm going to include links to them in case you haven't been listening from the start. It's serendipitous that we are so incredibly close to 100,000 downloads in the same exact window of time that I reach our 100th episode. Thank you for listening, and thank you for sharing this with your friends and family. The thing I appreciate about this podcast is its practicality, being able to refer to a specific topic when you decide you're ready to remodel the bathroom, or you're going to build a home, or maybe address the laundry situation because it's a reoccurring household argument. Our lives ebb and flow. In different seasons, we experience different frustrations and different puzzles in our home to think about and tackle. If we move, new floor plans inevitably bring up different challenges, and we start all over again, asking ourselves questions about our space and our reasons. How much light is allowed into our room is always a key indicator of how much we enjoy being in that space, or maybe how the energy reads. The top 10 countries for downloads of this podcast are as follows and are in this order: the United States, United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Germany, Austria, Sweden, Ireland, and Spain. I think it's always a delight to imagine you in these countries and think about what your home might be like and the unique challenges that you face. Amazingly, as of this recording, there are exactly 100 countries listed with people listening and downloading this podcast. Imagine the 100th episode and exactly 100 countries with downloads. And upon recording this, being short of 100,000 downloads by just a bit over 2,000. This is torture, I tell you. Help me push it over the mark by sharing this episode and podcast, would you? Post it to social media in stories so you can include a link or whatever is comfortable to you. Thank you so much for helping, my friend. Now let's get to it. This one's more festive, right? It's not quite as serious as all the rest. Here is the countdown of the top 10 episodes by starting at episode 54, coming in at number 10, titled Bootcamp for Your Home. Creating a home that thrives means embracing evolution, continuing to tweak your home to function better or differently as the seasons of your life shifts. It means the spaces you have personalized help you to get better at something, geek out on a passion, or fill your soul. Your spaces should help you succeed at exploring or mastering something where time slips by in an instant because you're able to be single-mindedly engrossed, living in the present moment to its fullest. In the simplest of terms, it's imperative that your home helps you to feel good about life and the ease at which things happen within the walls of your home. Episode 54 is meant to come back to for each room you choose to tackle, and that's why it's called Bootcamp for Your Home. Step 1, start by choosing one room. Maybe it's the worst room, and I'm using air quotes here, whether it be functionality or aesthetics or even just clutter. Don't second guess yourself, make a choice and stick to it. To get on with step 2, listen to the full episode, number 54, linked in the show notes. Coming in at number 9 is episode 63. Popular, I think, because it's all about remodeling inspiration. And it's one of just a few of my episodes that was done in video form so you can watch it and tour the home with me, which is so much fun. Walk through a 1964 remodel to witness some before and afters, along with a relaxing stroll through their choices. Get inspired and spend 15 minutes with me, all in video form. I will absolutely put the link in the show notes. For this one, you're looking for episode 63, called Remodeling Inspiration, a video home tour. Coming in at number 8 is episode 46, The Haunting of a House. Let me tell you how absolutely bizarre this experience was. First, this is the only time I've ever recorded about anything ghostly, and I only did it because it has to do with a house. I share some real-life stories and talk about the inhabitants with Dr. Christy Sumner, a paranormal investigator, where she shares the details of an investigation in a house on a lake. Something is still there, moving around, lurking in the shadows, making curious, unexplainable noises, and just never leaving. Frank McAndrew, PhD, explains in an article from Psychology Today, quote, "From a psychological point of view, the standard features of a haunted house triggers feelings of dread because they push buttons in our brains that evolved long before houses even existed. These alarm buttons warn us of potential danger and motivate us to proceed with caution. Haunted houses give us the creeps, not because they pose a clear threat to us, but rather because it is unclear whether they represent a threat or not. The ambivalence leaves you frozen in place and wallowing in unease. For example, it would be considered bizarre and embarrassing to run screaming out of a house that makes you feel uneasy if there is actually nothing to fear. On the other hand, it could be perilous to ignore your intuition and remain in a place that is dangerous. These are the psychological mechanisms behind feeling creeped out. They may be useful if they help you maintain vigilance when threat is uncertain. They also help you manage the balance between self-preservation and self-presentation. If you enjoy a good ghost story and you love houses like I do, enjoy episode number 46, the 8th most downloaded episode of the Home, Space, and Reason podcast. Coming in at number 7 is the 7-minute guided relaxation exercise, which is episode 48. This is a special edition 7-minute episode that I intentionally made separate just so you can come back to it again and again. It's a guided relaxation exercise that you can repeat as often as you like. And because it's the 7th most downloaded, I'm guessing a lot of people have listened over and over again. Find a quiet, still place in your house. Get a candle or two and light them there. Sit down and take 7 minutes to breathe deeply, to relax, and practice gratitude for the roof over our head. Coming in at number 6 in our countdown, people love episode 45, all about organizing, specifically the KonMari method. There are so many ways to organize, and our brains work differently, so some methods may resonate with you more than others. Most tidying methods advocate a room-by-room or little-by-little approach, creating a scenario that may just never end because it's not structured with a beginning and an end date. In episode 45, we're talking specifically about the KonMari method. People around the world have been drawn to this philosophy not only due to its effectiveness, but also because it places great importance on being mindful, introspective, and forward-looking. I invited Kristen Ivy and Karen Sochi as guests to talk about the KonMari method. They're not only licensed KonMari consultants, but they're also the co-hosts of the Spark Joy podcast, dedicated to the transformative power of surrounding yourself with joy and letting go of all the rest. If you'd like to learn more about this method of organization and listen to that interview, you'll find the link for episode 45 in the show notes, the 6th most downloaded in our countdown. Next up in spot number 5 is creating spaces for movement and habits for health with special guest Nicole Darabi in episode number 40. Does my home contribute to my good health, or does it sabotage it? As much thought and effort as we put into creating a lovely space for sitting and hanging out on the couch with our family, it is as important to also spend as much time making sure I have easy access to workout clothes, creating spaces for yoga, or whatever movement that you enjoy. Where are your water bottles? If they're in the back of the cupboard, will you use them? Likely not. Gather every item you need to move or that encourages movement and put them in one easy, accessible station or bag so it's easier to work out or to walk or to choose to ride your bike to the store instead of driving your car. I want to encourage you to think about your home and movement. Since spaces can reflect who we are, we can also make intentional decisions about it so it shapes us and who we want to become. Nicole Darabi is a fitness nutritionist. She coaches clients on making choices about food and balancing adulting, parenting, and fitting in time for movement and nourishing your body. Listen to that interview and think about creating spaces for movement and habits for health in episode number 40. Coming in at spot number 4 in our top 10 countdown is occupied by episode 1, where everyone should start really. It's the first episode, an introduction to this whole series titled, Does Every Space Have a Reason? I have added it up and I have moved 17 times in my life. That's a lot of moving. That's a lot of sampling what it's like to live in different spaces. I started taking notice that different spaces caused me to act differently regardless of the square footage. I went to countless Street of Dreams tours, renovation tours, modern home tours, and home and garden shows. I walked through homes with my clients, hearing what they like and dislike, both about the homes we see and the homes they live in. I hear what matters to them, and it's usually things like time with their kids roasting marshmallows over a fire pit, or making a family recipe with their aging parent who may now be living under the same roof. But seldom do I hear people make parallels like I feel like my son hides in the basement and plays video games for 13 hours. So I'd really like to find a home without a basement that could have a dedicated space that he can game in while still being surrounded by light and life and the people who love him. So I continued to observe and listen to what people say they love on one hand, but on the other hand, seeing what they say they want in a home, and those things didn't necessarily add up. And so I started thinking more deeply about why and encouraged others to think about why. And therein lies the reason this podcast was born, to think deeper about the things we value and choices we make and how they impact us every single day in our homes. While you're there listening to episode 1, you're welcome to just keep listening in chronological order if you'd like. There are so many jewels scattered about, too many to miss. Next up in spot number 3 of our top 10 sits Swedish death cleaning, episode number 62. If you've ever had anyone pass away that is close to you, and it was left up to you to go through their things to clean, sell, and handle all the details, you know this can be daunting. The gentle act of Swedish death cleaning is simply a lighter way to live, even if you have 40 years left ahead. It's a lovely way to frame cleaning and organizing so you don't leave your loved ones with an intimidating mountain of chaos to deal with. Closets packed from floor to ceiling with things you haven't even seen in 20 years. This occupies the third most downloaded episode for a reason. It has struck a chord with a lot of us. Occupying spot number 2, which shocks the heck out of me, is number 56, Hardwoods, Laminate, Carpet, or Vinyl. In this mini episode, I talk about the conundrum of choosing flooring. Whether you're building a home, remodeling many rooms, or simply updating the flooring in one room, there are many good questions to ask yourself about your space and your reason. Unlike most episodes, I'm going to pose these questions right out of the gate. So grab your pencil and paper and make a pros and cons list of sorts, all about hardwoods, laminate, carpet, or vinyl, the second most downloaded episode of them all. Coming in the number 1 spot of the top 10 most downloaded episodes is episode number 53, a story about a woman, her health, house, and healing. I think people love a good story, and this episode has all the goodness in it. What makes a home feel homey? What makes a home feel like an embrace? Jessica is a historic home remodeler, inspirational storyteller, lover of design and photography, and someone whom I am privileged enough to call my friend. We share a love for homes and the slow journey of discovering what makes each one special. We both love deep diving into a topic to learn more and honoring the history of a home. I started off by telling you the backstory in the words written by Jessica herself, who authored her story on her blog called thankfulbungalow.com. She writes, "As a teenager, I began to tremor while lifting weights, so much so that students nicknamed me Shakes in high school. I would often pass out on my walk home from the gym and remember the feel of frozen blacktop on my face as my body hit the ground, and the doubt that filled my stomach as my friendly pediatrician assured me, 'This kind of thing happens to young girls. Don't worry, you'll grow out of it.' Despite that, I won a golf scholarship at a Division I level, the highest competition level for college athletics, but I developed exercise intolerance, and my athletic ability declined as my list of symptoms grew longer. I tore my right hip flexor, and my right shoulder constantly shifted out of place. Cold weather triggered excruciating sharp pain in my skull base. I developed a forward head posture and a hump in my neck. I couldn't tolerate medications. I often felt foggy-headed and had bone-crushing fatigue. The smell of perfume, cleaning products, and cinnamon-scented pine cones at the front of the craft store during the holiday season triggered migraine headaches and made my skin burn. Somehow I graduated from college with honors in only 3 years, married my longtime boyfriend, and moved from Portland to Philadelphia. Shortly after moving, migraine headaches and bouts of bed-spinning vertigo debilitated me. I couldn't sleep because of restless legs and widespread body pain, and I got serotonin syndrome from the first anxiety medication I had taken. To this day, when I hear Enya on the radio, I associate her beautiful voice with this horrible time in my life. During the next 2 years, we moved to Chicago and San Francisco for my husband's career. With every new city came new doctors and more diagnoses: depression, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, and more. Hear how she ended her marriage, moved, and became the homeowner she is today. In episode 53, the most downloaded episode of them all, titled A Story About a Woman, Her Health, House, and Healing. Before I close out this top 10 countdown episode, I want to include an honorable mention, one of my personal favorite episodes, number 38, Fire Pits, with special guest Mike Bertelston, who is the founder of the Cowboy Cauldron. A fire pit is one of those things that draw people in, no matter their age, to sit and talk, reminisce, and let their guard down. I am a fan of biographies, and I read a story about a guy whose life changed course that I thought you might enjoy too. Mike Bertelston grew up in a small town in the high desert of the American West. The outdoors was a huge part of his life. Horses, hunting, fishing, all of it. Mike worked as a fly fishing guide in Jackson, Wyoming, but not having enough money for gas and fishing got old, and so he went to law school. After the bar exam, he moved to the East Coast and eventually got the chance to work on the staff of a congressman, and then as counsel for the Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs Committee in the U.S. House of Representatives. Eventually, he became a lobbyist, and entertaining was a big part of his professional life. Get this. He was living on a property that had been part of Mount Vernon, the home of George Washington, and he roamed the estate. This is deep history here in the United States, because in 1754, George Washington began residing at Mount Vernon, a 3,000-acre estate and a house that likely approximated 3,500 square feet. By his death, Washington's Mount Vernon consisted of about 7,600 acres and an almost 11,000 square foot mansion. With this authentic colonial history all around him, Mike got inspiration for something he saw on the estate, and with that was the story of how the Cowboy Cauldron was born. Listen to my interview with Mike in episode number 38, Fire Pits, with special guest Mike Bertelston, founder of the Cowboy Cauldron Company. Well, thank you for coming to my party. Episode 100 is officially wrapped. When you buy a home with a realtor who is also a home functionality coach, you get the added value of an expert to think through how the space can be used to its best and highest potential, specific to the needs, passions, and values of your family. If you're thinking of buying or selling, consider coming to me. I would be honored to be your agent. I can also list a home and stage it to make sense out of odd spaces so you get the most out of your investment. The finest compliment I could receive is the confidence of your referrals. If you're enjoying this content and you'd like more of it, sign up for my email newsletter, Little Bits of Home Functionality. It comes just once a week and is intentionally short. You'll see one video with a tip or a trick or a tour. And as always, I post questions for you to think through about your space and your reasons. Find the link to subscribe in the show notes and follow along on social media by searching for the handle Space and Reason. Thanks for sitting in on this conversation about creating a home that thrives. I'll meet you back here for the next episode.